All right.
Disconnect.
All right, so at this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order, the regular city council meeting Monday, June 16th. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Bainey. Here. Alderman Glab.
Here.
Alderman Doherty.
Here.
Alderwoman Bassey. Here. Alderman Davis.
Here.
Alderman Cook.
Here.
Alderwoman Miller. Here.
Hey, council. All right, we're going to go ahead and stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the public comment portion, if you are here regarding the parks conversation, if you have to go ahead and give your comment, this would be the time to do so, or you can wait to the end of the meeting and we can go ahead and ask the public for a comment later on, but that's your option. Also, public comment for any items that are not on the agenda this evening. On this agenda, anyone that would like to make a comment? John? Please hit the middle button and state your name and address for public record.
John Smith, 3338 Waukegan Road. I didn't expect to do this, but going through that presentation, being a biker myself, I just would like the city to consider talking to IDOT, and I brought this up with a few of you, to make a connection to West McHenry. Somehow, if it used like the flashing lights we could on Green Street. Now, IDOT has very specific warrants and other issues that may or may not work, but if at Main Street or at John Street, we could possibly make a connection, excuse me, with flashing warning lights, you know, so bikers could cross there. I think it would be a great idea, so now would be the time to work with IDOT with the new improvement coming. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other public comment? All right, moving forward, moving along here, 5A through 5I, any council members wanting to pull any items for separate consideration? Alderman Cook?
C, please.
Okay, any others? See none, I'm looking for a motion to approve 5A, B, and then D through I. Alderman Miller?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda A, B, D through I.
Thank you. Alderman Doherty, for a second?
I'd make a second on that motion.
Thank you. Discussion on these items by City Council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Doherty.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bainey.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey.
Yes.
Alderman Davis.
Yes.
Alderman Cook.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Item 5C was pulled by Alderman Cook. 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the City of McHenry and International Union and Operating Engineers, Local 150, Public Employees Division, for a term beginning May 1st, 2025 and ending April 30th, 2028. Alderman Cook, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. In previous discussions with staff, were you trying to go for a 5-year and wound up getting a 3-year, or was it already originally going for a 3-year contract?
That's typically been something that's been part of the negotiation. We've done 3-year contracts, we've done 4-year contracts in the past, so it's really kind of based on the terms that both sides are trying to achieve during the negotiating phase.
So you agreed on a 3-year term?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have. That's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, looking for a motion to approve 5C as presented. Alderman Miller?
I'll make that motion to approve 5C in the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Second. Alderwoman Bainey?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bainey.
Yes.
Alderman Glab.
Yes. Alderman
Doherty.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey.
Yes.
Alderman Davis.
Yes.
Alderman Cook.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 6A, is Cold Springs Park. Looking for a motion to approve and award of a proposal to provide landscape architectural services for the development of Cold Springs Park in the amount of $37,700. Alderman Miller?
I'll make the motion to approve and award a proposal to provide a landscape architect service for the development of Cold Springs Park in the amount of $37,700.
Thank you. Second. Alderman Doherty?
I'd make the motion. Just second that.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council on this item? Alderman Miller?
I just want to thank the direction for Director Hobson. We have talked about Cold Springs Park a million times privately. Obviously, your master park plan, which you didn't get all the way through, but you got significantly through, identifies Cold Springs Park as one of our gifts that we need to do something wonderful with. And as we have talked at a council level, we don't know what to do with it. So this landscape architectural plan will give us some guidance on what we can do with that natural gift that we have, and I am grateful that I see it on the agenda. Thank you.
Any other? Alderman Doherty, go ahead.
Yeah, again, I want to thank for that presentation, but on it, you're highlighting the national trends. You're hitting core trends 3 and 4 by addressing the needs of this park. The outdoor survey was #1 in the ranking, so I want to thank you for bringing this forward, and I think it's time to do a study on it, and let's see what we can do with this park to keep it a nice passive park. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Gleb.
It's a nature park. Yeah, that means Mother Nature takes care of it. We need to pay Mother Nature $37,000 is what we're going to do with it. I mean, it's a lot of money to spend to what? To put up trails in there or whatever. I mean, are we trying to make this a just plain natural park that we could brag that it's a beautiful park, that we're going to bring people in from off of the trail and everything else to inundate that neighborhood? You know, it's supposed to be a natural, quiet park, and I think to some extent, I worry that we spend that kind of money on that woodland. You know, needless to say, architectural services are going to come up with all kinds of crazy ideas of different things in there. Other than what we need in there more than anything else is probably a trail of some sort that people can actually walk through to discover and enjoy the nature of it out there.
Thank you.
I would just say it is just in response to that, it definitely is a passive park and it's a nature park, and that's the intention. There also is a number of sensitive areas, and that's why I think it's important to bring a consultant in to really piece those together. Those are highlighted by the neighbors. So make sure that it all works together by bringing a consultant in to take a look and design around those areas, and maybe even using those areas to our advantage while maintaining it as a passive park and a nature park. I can't say that enough. But also then providing some neighborhood connectivity, as we talked about in the Parks Master Plan earlier, and this park provided the opportunity to do so. It might be to Ponca, it might just be Paul to Ponca, it might be to Dartmoor, or it could be to Prairie Path. Also, as part of this plan, I think it's important to note that my request as staff was to include the $1,600 for a community meeting, so that we bring those neighbors together and let them voice their opinion of what they would like to see there as well.
Again, it's a neighborhood park, and I just don't want to see to where we inundate that neighborhood with a ton of traffic trying to use it as a feature item of the city. That's my concerns more than anything else. Those people want with the idea that that would be a natural park and that it would be a quiet neighborhood, and you know, I just don't want to see it inundate more so than anything. So even if I go along with this architectural service, I'd be very curious to see what they come up with and see where the value is.
Bill, could you also touch on the OSLAD grant concept? Thanks.
That's a huge part of the proposal, like $8,300.
Of the proposal was the preparation of OSLAD grant. Those are matching dollar for dollar, so it could save us we could get extra development or a nicer path. Again, it doesn't have to, I'm not saying we have to overdevelop it. I'm not saying we have to put playgrounds in. We're not going to do that type of thing. It's a passive park. But to have the expertise of this consultant be able to come in and prepare that and submit that OSLAD grant application for us is a huge part of what we're asking for here in terms of this proposal. OSLAD, OSLAD. Bessie?
Thank you. I think $37,700 would be better spent towards more tangible improvements. The city should be working with friends of Cold Springs and conservation groups rather than calling in a third-party consultant. Thanks.
Alderman Cook?
Well, it's the grant money I'm looking at, $8,300 to dollar for dollar. Would, out of this $37,000, would we be able to recoup any of that money through this grant?
Not
Or
through,
would it come out of like development funds or something like that? Some of it.
the money for this entirety of this request is coming from Parks Developer donations, to increase, again, recreational opportunities. Any dollar moving forward, should we be awarded the OSLA grant, any architectural, any engineering, any of those dollar for dollar, that then we can leverage that money.
So the $37,000, that comes out of general fund, right? No, it comes out of
Parks Developer donations,
Okay.
yeah, not general fund.
Thank you.
Alderman Miller?
Just a couple extra comments. First of all, I love the interpretive park idea. I worked on one of those down in Springfield, and much to my surprise, people love walking that park and just reading the interpretive signage. This park would lend itself nicely to that because of the topography, because of what's there. I could see a sign identifying poison ivy. I could see a sign identifying, brambles. People love that stuff. So I think that's important. The second thing that I want to say is that I have asked, and several of the residents that are adjacent to Cold Springs Park have come this evening to listen to our presentation. And as I've reached out to them before and reported back to council, they very much want to be part of this process, not only as a focus group, but give input. So we have had conversation and will continue the conversation about what to do with Cold Springs Park. So did you all have anything to say? If you do, Wayne will call you up shortly.
Any other questions, comments by City Council? All right, any public comment?
If I may, thank you.
Absolutely. Please state your name and address for public record. And if you could hit the center button.
Ivor Johnson, 317 DePaul Court, right at the entranceway to Cold Springs Park. I'm very encouraged by what I've heard here tonight. I want to thank Sue Miller for putting this on the agenda. Since the original studies were done that we have talked about over the years, and you've seen pictures and excerpts from in some of my materials, this park has changed a lot. We are dealing with a different geography, a different ecology than was true 30 years ago. And with that in mind, it seems to me that the relatively small amount of money to get intelligent, informed architectural planning, development planning, to know what really now needs to be done, which is different than what needed to be done 35 years ago, I think is a good investment of public money that will benefit us all in the long run. This could be a beautiful park, no doubt about it. The ecology is interesting. You have relatively high dry land, you have wetlands and fens, and that vegetation has become deteriorated. We need experts to tell us what to do. We have some labor that can do it, and believe me, we did a lot of clearing in the last 6 months last year. My back is still punishing me for it. But the progress is so slow, and we need guidance, we need a plan, and so I commend this to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help. All right, any other public comment regarding this item? See none? All right, any comments by City Council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Doherty?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bainey?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey?
No.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item regarding downtown development. HDR is here this evening, so Chaya, if you want to step over to this table here. Ross, is there anything you want to start us off with, or?
No, I think this is a long time coming. We're just looking for some direction tonight for our downtown vacant parcels that we have. Shai and Jeff have put together a little presentation for you tonight, and they're going to guide you through it. So, please, this is a discussion, so, we would like to get something out of this. But Shai and Jeff are gonna pry that information out of you tonight, so.
Thanks, Russ.
If you guys remember, this is Shai Rue from HDR and Jeff from
Hello.
HDR. So.
All right, who's going to be controlling the PowerPoint?
I'll give you the little,
Thank you. Do we think it's going to work this time?
We'll see.
Should we take that?
Better take.
Well, thank you. As introduced, I'm Jeff, and this is Shai. We're really excited again, as always, to be back before you guys, and now with the new council, some old faces. So, really tonight, what we're going to be going over is kind of that bridge of filling in some gaps. Right now, you have the comprehensive plan that's been adopted, but there's really two components that go hand in hand with any kind of development that occurs in a municipality. The comprehensive plan is the guide, is the tool, the vision, really, that helps people understand what it is that is desired. And then you have the instructions, basically the blueprint, which is the Unified Development Ordinance that we're about to start working on. But that's going to be a process. It's a 9-12-month process to do that component, rewriting the city's ordinances in order to make development come in and really understand, before they come in, what are the actual instructions. So to help bridge, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that we're giving some guidance, a little bit more than what is out there in the comp plan. And so that's what we want to do here tonight. We're looking specifically at the wastewater treatment plant site near the downtown. There's been desires in the past, talking with staff, of, developers are curious, what is the city interested in developing? Again, the comp plan is there, but if there's truly a desire to see that parcel be developed, what can we do in the interim until the Unified Development Ordinance is written and adopted? What can we do in the meantime? And the tool that's before us that we've done and other municipalities have probably have done, that you're probably familiar with, is now for an RFP, request for proposal from developers. But you just can't say, here's our comp plan, give us a development proposal for that. We need a little bit more of an instruction. So that's kind of that discussion point when we get done here with the Shai's presentation, is to have a good conversation about what is it they're really thinking about until that ordinance is written, something to help bridge the gap. So.
Thank you, Jeff. So, again, just to reiterate, the purpose today is to get council direction on what should we put in that developer RFQ, RFP, and also what should we put in the Unified Development Code. So not just for this site, we would love it if you would tell us for the rest of the city too, but if we only have time to talk about this one site, that still gives us some input on what you're looking at. So really as you have all seen, the comp plan is very, it's a guide. It says, here's something you can see, but then we don't know exactly what height do you want, what type of land uses you want, what locations you want, and incentives. So we'll just walk through a little bit of this, and then we'll try to get your input on how and what exactly you all will agree on. So Vision 2050, again, I'm so sorry, I don't know what we're doing. We did talk to a lot of people, and however, as Councilwoman Chris pointed out, these 2,000 people, we can't say we exactly talked to different 2,000 people. Some may have shown up similar, to different occasions, but we did try to go to different events, different age groups, different type of, people. I do remember for sure 3 people that came to 3 places. One was a high school student, one was a lady we met in Home Depot, and she then came back with her mom twice. And those are the 2 we distinctly remember, because they would come up and say, hey, I was at this, I heard this, will you tell me something? So I can't say there wasn't too much of an overlap, but yes, we cannot tell you exactly how much overlap. And, but I will say this, in 26 years I've been doing this, getting 2,000 people, even if they're repeated people, to come out that many times, it's a very good record here. I usually get like 5, 15 at any one event, and we're like all prepared and get like 10 people come in or 15 people. So this was really a very fun process to do. But so for downtown, this is the downtown plan. What we did ask was, what would you like to see? So sure, people just said catalyst developments. And we looked at what people said and did extrapolate what they were saying. So for example, if people said we want variety of housing, we want affordable housing, and then we want other uses, retail or, things to do. Well, if you combine all of that in urban planning terms, that's mixed-use development. That's why and where the word mixed use comes from is over and over again we heard we want more housing, we want different types of housing, we want affordable housing, and we want retail and commercial, something to do for all age groups. Oh, this is where. So for these catalyst sites, we had, these were the 3 catalyst sites. The way we selected those was, who owns them? So if city owned the property, it's much easier to get development going. And then also where they were on 3 different areas. So you weren't just doing it in one area, you were spreading it, and then development can fill in. And the other thing was, some of these people themselves developers had come out, some interest was there in these properties. So that's how you kind of pinpoint catalyst sites, is to see who owns it, is market interested in these sites, and then ease of development. So we'll talk about the third site. That's the one I think today we would like, but just so you know, these are sites that have just a design. It's a 2D design for you to see what type, and I'm so sorry, this is very small, but what type of uses. So here it says you could have townhouses, you can have retail and living above it, you can have a hotel on that corner, some different types of housing as you can see below there. So that's the idea, is to say, here's how something like this could fit on this site. It doesn't talk about density, it doesn't talk about how tall or what height it can be, it doesn't talk about, for sure you have to allow this. These are just an idea of types of uses. So today what we'd like to do is get you to tell us exactly what it is that you would like to see. When staff puts out the RFP or RFQ, what we want to know is, should staff be talking to this developer and development? If council openly says that we don't want anything over this height, or we don't want these type of uses, so when that developer comes in with that plan, staff can just let them know, no, this is not what we are looking for. Here's exactly what's in our code, so you can only build this. So in addition to the RFP, we would write that in your downtown district to say, here's your height, here's your setbacks, here's your uses, this is what you can do in downtown. You can do sub-districts in downtown and then have different elements for different sub-districts. But we want to know what it is that you all want to see come in front of you. That actually saves everybody time. And so that's why we are here today. And
sorry to interrupt over here. Hi. Do you mind going back just very briefly to the comp plan process and talking a little bit about the charrettes and where these kind of images that are shown in the plan, how those were generated? Thanks.
So this image that you see is from the charrette. Actually, in this room, we pulled this down. The whole team was here for 4 days. We drove around and looked at the sites, and then the team actually sat here and drew it. They literally took the site plan, created 3 different type of designs for each of these 3 sites, and then in the evening we pinned it up like that, and people came and told us we like this, or they combined it. I like this from this design and I like this from this design. So then next morning we worked on combining and taking in what people have told us and created that second version. That evening at 6 o'clock, people came again and told us what they liked, what they didn't like, what to do with those plans. So you can see all of this here is literally people putting sticky notes and telling us what they would like to see where. And that's how the next day we went and finalized it. That was the 3rd iteration of it, where we really refined based on what we'd heard from the community, and then that's where these came from. So this is exactly where people were telling us what they like, what type of land uses. We didn't ask them what height. We didn't ask them what density. We asked them, what would you like to see? What type of development would you like to see? That's all we asked them, because heights and density, all of that is done in a UDO, not in a comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan is just ideas and visions. So we kept it at that and didn't ask about that. So that's why this you see is in 2D, is because we never asked anything about the 3D. So if y'all will tell us, we will put that in your UDO, as well as put it out in the RFQ, RFP, so it's clear to the community what the council's looking for, and staff do.
Sorry to interrupt again. I see people in the audience taking photographs of the pictures that are up here. I just want everyone to realize these are pictures that are directly out of the city's comprehensive and downtown plans. And so those are available online if you ever want to take a look at the whole plan holistically, or to get a kind of a better view of what these look like. That's where those can be found. And so they're on our website, as well as on the McHenry2050.com. Yeah, is that what it is? Okay, thanks.
And all the write-up, everything that's on here is in those plans.
And I think one thing that was really neat about that charrette process, it's not, the designers are sitting back in some office, and then, Shai and I are engaging the public, or you as council members, and then we relay it. They're hearing firsthand and talking with the public about things that they drew that morning. And you got to be really thick-skinned about, I just drew and created something, and then like 3 hours later they're, cutting it up, but then the next day you go back and wash, rinse, repeat, and so 3 days in a row. And I mean, the process is really phenomenal for those that were here that got to watch it. And the designers are able to then take that information, and then within, they go to sleep probably dreaming it, and then the next night or the next morning they're ready to go and refine the designs again.
And also, for everyone here too, there are images like you see down, the image down here. That's just an idea, so people can see what could this look like. There are many such images in the comp plan, but that's because when we say tuck-in townhomes, what does that mean? Cottage courts, what does that look like? So those are just ideas of what it looks like. It doesn't mean that you have, if there were 20 townhomes, that you have to allow 20 townhomes. It just means if you're doing townhomes, maybe when you write your UDO, you could have those design elements, if you like them, in your code, architectural design standards in your code. So comp plan really was put there, all those images, to give ideas of, yes, put it in the code as a requirement. Don't put this in the code. that kind of a thing. So just wanted to know that just because there's images of different types of developments in the plan, it's just to give people an idea of what these type of developments could look like. And so we looked around in your neighboring cities to look at the comparable projects. So we went to Water's Edge and Crystal Lake, and we wanted to show you what market is doing these type of developments. So land uses, it's a mix of multifamily, townhome, retail, restaurants, hotel. We're not saying you have to do all of it. We're just showing you that this is one type of development that's been very successful in one of your neighbors. There's some number of square feet of commercial, how many multifamily, how many townhome units they have, and then hotel rooms is between 60 and 120 rooms. Height, we found it variable from the 145, 40. It's literally between 3 to 5 stories is what we found in this area. We didn't see anything over 5 stories in this area, but you can say 2 stories. You can say 1 story. You can tell us what you want, and we'll write it in the code. So I just wanted you all to know, just because we're showing you comparable projects doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. This is your city. It's your prerogative to tell us what you want, and that's what we will do. Just so you also know, these kind of developments, cities have given incentives. We have not found one development that was built in downtown without incentives. Crystal Lake gave $14 million, and then in their code, they had density bonus, flexible zoning. So for example, density bonus would mean your code would say downtown, nothing over 3 stories. Max height, 3 stories. But if you give us structured parking for these many spaces, we'll let you have 5 stories. So that would be your density bonus is what we would say. So that's an incentive you're giving people to build. So that was Water's Edge. And then Algonquin has that 70-acre enclave development. That's just simple retail and multifamily. That's 3.5 stories or 40 feet. And then the incentives were sales tax rebate, streamlining the permit process, and zoning support. So for developers, time is money. So you can actually do a streamlined process of entitlements, and that is considered an incentive too. And then TIF infrastructure reimbursements. So build a TIF and then let the developer get the money for the infrastructure they build over the years. So those are some of the incentives they had in Algonquin. So based on that, we did look at what were the common features. Mixed use, multifamily type developments. I should have put slash townhome slash. I just realized I just stopped at multifamily. But mixed use means just 2 different types of uses. So you really have to have commercial and residential. That's your mixed use. So retail, residential. What residential doesn't matter. You tell us what type of residential you want, but mixed use just means residential and commercial. And then, of course, the unit numbers have gone all over from 200 to almost 480 stories. Height is between 3 to 5. And usually, incentives, we looked at other cities too. Easier is the TIF or development policy. So your UDO, writing the UDO, putting incentives in there, and also doing TIF. So that means money is not going out of your general fund. It is what the development brings in is what you give. Sales tax rebate. If they don't make enough sales tax, they don't get enough rebates. So that's all your general fund is not hit. So that's what most people try to do is do a TIF for infrastructure and development policies or, you know, your UDO or something, give them some extra stuff. So those are some of the common features. So now we would like some direction on, shall I go back, height, land uses, okay.
That's it.
Oh, did someone, oh, yeah. And for your developer RFQ or RFP, you do have to tell them, what are you open to? Not that we will give you these incentives, but at least let them know we are open to negotiating these incentives so that they know whether to come to you or not. That's how they do their pro forma, is to see, okay, this is what I can build, this is what I will ask the city for, so. And then you all can evaluate which developer is giving you more, which developer is giving you less of what you want. So, let's start with maybe this property, the water treatment plant.
That was my question. We're focusing right now on the wastewater treatment plant, former, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We will,
No, I didn't mean...
If I could just, we kind of need direction on both sites.
Yeah.
This isn't specifically for the wastewater treatment plant site. This is the downtown development parcels that the city owns.
He's asking right now for the treatment.
Right, I just wanted to make sure. That's fine if we do the treatment plant first, but we're also gonna ask you about the other parcels too.
and y'all can tell us that we want this height for the water treatment site, wastewater treatment site, and this for Elm and Green, because we can do sub-districts. That's easy to do.
Okay. Alderwoman Miller?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for being here. Obviously, several of us participated in the process when you did the comp plan, and to Jeff's point, thank you for having thick skin, because watching your work product getting cut apart and revised in a very short amount of time has to be difficult. It's kind of like your baby, but thank you. I have a couple questions for staff. What is the tallest building in town? Is it the hospital?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how many feet is the hospital, just for perspective for me?
I could not, I can probably find it if you give me a few minutes.
Because it's
8 stories.
Yeah, 8 stories, so.
7 stories, right?
One story below, it's probably 80, 100 feet, 90 feet, probably somewhere roughly around there. Yeah.
So.
100 feet.
So if the hospital.
it's pretty.
So if the
pretty tall.
hospital's our tallest building, just because I'm a visual human, what's our second tallest building? Is it River Place at 4 stories?
It's probably similar to the bank here or River Place.
Okay.
I would say River Place.
So the bank's 4 stories?
McHenry, yeah, this bank here, the old McHenry Savings
That
Bank
one right
is
over there?
4 stories.
Okay.
Are they both 4? Are they both 4-story?
Yes.
River Place is 4 stories, one retail, 3
Right.
residential, and the bank has a walkout lower level, and then first floor, second floor, third floor.
Okay, and the hospital is at 7 or 8 stories?
8.
Thank you.
Alderman Glab, go ahead.
Yeah, let's get started. They're looking for input. What I'd like to see, and again, that's my opinion, is as far as the wastewater treatment plant site, I think I'd like to see us keep the piers. I'd like to see us have a boat business back there as far as boat rentals and storage and everything else, just basically what we have right now. I'd like to see a park, and I'd like to see basically either townhomes, probably townhomes more so than anything else, similar to what we have right now along Boone Creek, incorporated in there. And of course, it's basically, I'm not looking at any kind of rental over there other than rent. That's my vision for that area. I think it gives some commercial, because I don't want to see stores over there or anything else. I don't think, people are going to go out that far out of the way to visit stores unless it's a real specialty shop, and in that case, they would survive anywhere in the city. And I think, considering the vast area that we have as far as waterfront, I think having a park area there for our residents to enjoy, as well as more development of townhomes along that way. My vision.
Piers, boat, rentals.
Go ahead, Ross. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What about the Riverwalk? Would you like to see the Riverwalk extended around that point and loop back?
As long as it incorporates with everything else. I don't know how the Riverwalk would meet with the boat docks and all that. I'm sure we could probably accommodate that. I don't see why...
You're not opposed to it?
Why you wouldn't... No, I don't see why you wouldn't want to see that over there. But we're only talking along the... Well... Or would it interconnect? Yeah, I mean, no, I think it would definitely be a plus with that. The other Riverwalk also extend out that far.
Alderman Benny?
A few thoughts on that property. First of all, I think the density that's there right now is pretty extreme, considering it's a one-way in, one-way out road, and it seems like that apartment and what's down there now seems like it's quite dense. I agree. I would like to see the boat slips stay, but I don't think that having a business running them, I think it would be nice to see those as privately owned boat slips for the townhomes or whatever ends up going down there. I don't have an issue with mixed use, but I certainly wouldn't want to see a large, tall building in that location. There's some really beautiful homes down there right now, and I'd like to see that continue, and the Riverwalk to continue in that area as well. But I do think that there's some opportunity, especially seeing all the traffic we get at the tiny shops, to have something kind of similar. I like the idea of boutique shops, of a boutique hotel, but something that really keeps the caliber of the high, value of that piece of property and the properties that are already there.
So like a restaurant at the corner with outdoor seating, but you're okay with a boutique hotel, small?
I think the city would, I love the idea of a boutique hotel. I think there's a lot of businesses downtown that would benefit from it. And maybe some of those boat slips, I think we just don't have really any decent hotels in this community, and more people are wanting to come. But that being said, something higher end, certainly not, some type of chain hotel, anything like that, obviously.
Well, I will tell you all that I usually stay at the Hampton Inn in town, and I end up chatting with all the other people that come from outside, and you're right, they would. You get a lot of people that come to all your events, and you'll hear them say, oh, this is the only available one, I would love to stay in downtown, so that would work. Height, if you're saying boutique hotel, how tall, how many floors would you consider?
I don't know. I don't.
I'll say this, one thing you can think about is dividing the range. You don't have to get so specific necessarily. If you give a range, I like something between 2 and 10, make something up. That gives an idea of a flexibility that a developer to be pointed in on exactly 4 floors or 4 stories. No more, no less. You might end up limiting potential developer.
You can say up to these many stories or up to this height.
I feel like, I don't know, for me, I think 3 would be it, that I would be comfortable with, that could still keep that small town kind of exclusive feel. 4 stories turns into something completely different and starts blocking the view of that beautiful piece of property. So that at the max.
For that property?
Yeah, just for that property.
Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I just want to comment. even 3 stories to me is a little height. I think, one thing we got to look at is as far as the topography, and that land sits up higher than a lot of the property, as it's coming off of the river, which would increase the look of the height of that building. So, to me, 2 stories would be as far as the most I'd want to see out there.
Thank you. Alderman Miller?
So, I'm going to sound like Alderman Grant here, but I've lived in this community my whole life. When that bank went up, first when the hospital went up, we were all like, holy crap, how big is that thing? And then when this bank went up, we went, holy crap, what are they erecting? Because everything else in this community is 3 stories or less. So when anything went into the sky, they were for skyscrapers in Henry County. So my concern for the wastewater treatment plant, from 2 perspectives, is everything, to Alderperson Bainey's point, everything going down Waukegan is 2 levels. Mm-hmm. And then if you got to the end and there was this monstrosity, it's an albatross, it's an outlier, it's not harmonious. And when you come up the river, if you're on a boat, which our whole point, we're one of the great communities that has a river, let's bring people in from the river. I don't necessarily want to have people wandering down the river or wandering up the river, depending where they're coming from, and being duck, duck, goose, because everything else on the water there is low level, not more than 2 stories at this point. So my input, again, visually, is the wastewater treatment plant remodel would, in my best humble opinion, I would want to see that 2 stories, 3 max, depending on the topography. Otherwise, you have this beautiful piece of land that juts out onto the water. It's farther east than either of the pieces to the north or the south. And if you put this monstrosity out there, you've really built something that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily fit the topography. So for the wastewater treatment plant, I would love to see harmonious residential lifestyle living, not more than 3 stories tall.
Alderman Bassi.
Thank you. Ideally, in a perfect world, I would love to see the wastewater treatment be a natural park. I know that's never going to happen, but at least I can have that vision in my head. Having said that, I think to make a continuation of the townhomes that are available close to it would be, visually, it would be very nice. Your eyes would continue to flow. And those are 2 stories, so that would be nice. I would definitely like to see a lot of green space. I don't want everything to just be concrete. And keep out slips, of course. I have almost no opinion of a hotel, as long as it is 2 stories, maybe max 3. And I think that answered a concern of mine is there's really only one way into that area and one way out. And I would be concerned about any emergencies and making sure everyone is safe. So that is a concern of mine.
I think we would require any development that comes in to find that solution. I don't think fire marshal's gonna let you have one way in and one way out. Mm-hmm. So they would have to meet all your building codes and fire code and everything, they would have to provide a second entrance exit. Even the design that they created, our team did have that additional street created in the middle so that people can move around. So that will be taken care of. We can put it in the RFQ that you have to have a second entrance, otherwise don't come to us.
Yeah, and
Right, right.
Yeah, I would rather not have that. That's my opinion, but, we're gonna go ahead and, put it in there, that you have to have another, until you see the development, like, you don't wanna, right? Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other, just, Alderman Doherty?
Yeah, I mean, so far, the discussion, I can live with the discussion. My biggest thing with the area is, I don't want the density, obviously dense. When I looked at that drawing tonight, that you showed a couple slides later, and pictured myself standing in the middle of that Cary property right now, looking around and just seeing building upon building upon building, I want to hyperventilate. It's a beautiful piece of land that we need the green space down there. It needs to be harmonious with the neighborhood that's there existing, the townhomes, some continuation. Certainly you could put something, in the middle park of some type, but connected, I think, to the river would be an ideal scenario. And not opposed to a boutique hotel or something down there. And I think 3 stories max. I think you could do it. Everybody has to think a little bit. When you come down Waukegan, you already have a high school higher than what we're talking about. You've got River Place higher than we're talking about. And you've got Riverside Hotel higher than we're talking about. So, we're scaling it down. So, there is some height in the area, but just keep the area harmonious with what we've done already. That Miller Point across the way, you have the country club on the other side. I can't envision anything in between. That it has to blend with those 2 areas to keep that same feel, the air, the open space, the green space. It had to have that. Thank you.
Alderman Cook?
Great ideas. I just worry about the traffic down there, you got the hotel, townhomes and everything else, a high school there. Come up with a plan to deal with traffic a lot better, because it's only going to be a one-way in, one-way out. You're talking about a peninsula out there. So maybe it's a roadway. I could see the development, the 3-story hotel. In my mind, it looks pretty good. But as far as getting in, getting out, unless you're camping, go in there for a week and, not come out. You know what I'm saying? It's just easy in, easy out type thing. Easy on, easy off, I guess.
And we can put that in both the Unified Development Code for other developments too, but specifically for the RFQ for this property, that they would have to do the extra things, which is they have to have another way out, in and out. They have to do a TIA. So they would have to do a market study, they would have to do a traffic impact analysis, show us that what you're building is actually going to work without creating a ruckus in town. So all of that we can say, you have to provide us your pro forma, you have to provide us a traffic impact analysis, you have to provide us a market study, and then y'all can take a look at it.
Sounds wonderful to me.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what everybody said. I also agree that, excuse me, that, some sort of boutique hotel could be nice, make that a focal area, if you could connect it with the Riverwalk. I do think that there could also be some smaller places to eat, smaller restaurants, not large restaurants, but especially if you're going to use this as a park, it could be a focal point. Since it's right on the water, to have those piers develop something where that could be during the summer. People come in there, they come in, stay at the hotel, they come in for the weekend, there's places to eat there, they can go to the Riverwalk. If there's no places to eat or places to get something to drink and that, I think that kind of isolates it a little bit, right? Especially if you're connected with the Riverwalk. You could just, have an event at Miller Park and have that accessibility. I think that's kind of imperative to have those amenities there. You can still keep it small. Obviously I wasn't crazy about the whole picture of density. Again, it's an idea, what could happen. So, I think if we kept it smaller and I think it could be maybe another focal, it could be another Miller Point, right? It could be a focal area that we have events at, or just extend that access. So, I don't have any additional ideas beyond what everybody has already said. My ideas were kind of what's already listed, so, but definitely open to other suggestions.
What about height?
Height, I think 3 is probably where we would want to be, just so it blends in. Depending on the architecture of it, 4 might work, but I would have to see that. Again, it would have to be something that blends in. So.
Okay. All right, and that's the wastewater treatment plant. I'll just give my feedback. I agree with all of that. I think a boutique hotel would be awesome on the point. Some green space, tying into the Riverwalk. I do a meetup with the residents, and I met with the HOA residents. 3-story didn't scare them. I think 4 would be okay as max, but if everyone's not in favor of a 3 max, and whatever the case may be. But I think that's the right use. Townhomes continuing. If numbers work out, of course, it's all about it penciling out and the developers making money, and that it's been an issue on that site of it penciling out and developers even being able to develop that site into townhomes. Would love it, but we'll see if we do an RFP and RFQ and it works out. So, but yeah, I'm in favor of all that. So, Alderman Grive, go ahead.
Didn't we have a proposal for a hotel over there before?
Yes.
And what was the outcome of that? I mean,
the financials. No, it was the financials.
The financials, but the height as well was a.
That was a 2-story hotel.
That was just a 2-story hotel.
Yeah.
So then a 2-story could be doable. But the thing is again, could you get us, let's say, a comparable of as far as the heights, the property there versus, let's say, down to Green Street?
I just pulled it up here. It's 740 all the way through.
It is?
Yep.
So that
the entire
same height all
central,
the way.
well, not the entire, there's some lower spots than 740 on the central site itself, but the townhomes are 740. The parking lot for the River Place residence is 740, and then you start to come up, it's actually 745 around River Place.
Okay, so it isn't actually higher up there. At one time, somebody had mentioned the fact that nobody ever disagreed that the height.
The Cary Electric site does go up to 750 across the street, but generally speaking, you're at 740 all the way through.
All the way to the river.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'd like to see a high-end restaurant there. I think it would be important with the boutique hotel that there's a high-end restaurant, just for those people to eat there or go down and eat downtown. But I think it's important to have that as a component.
So one of the things that Shai brought up in looking at your neighboring communities, and really occurs everywhere, is those incentives. So hearing different stories of, I'd like 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is, what kind of things would the city be interested in conversing with the developer? So let's say, for example, hey, if you can build it in 2 stories, that's great. But you might need some incentives. But then they might say, well, I can do it in 3 stories. But if you really want 2, I need some incentive in order to bring that height down. So what incentives would you all be interested in having discussions with?
Tell me, Glenn.
Yeah, our incentives is the CHIP, and that's as far as possibly helping out with the roadways or the infrastructure of sewer and water, but I don't think with everything else we have on our plate that we're looking to dish out money from the general funds for anything on that. I mean, again, the TIP, and I think in the packet, I think it even showed what we use the TIP for. So there really isn't a lot of money to be dealt out to developers other than for the infrastructure.
Me personally, I think de-tiffing that area and re-tiffing it would be important, just to give it full 23 years. I think it's going to be important, especially meeting with developers and talking to them to make the financials work, no matter, especially if it's townhomes. I think, that's going to be important. But also, no, what was I going to say? Huh? Oh, land, that's what I was going to say. So, and also the land. I'd be in favor of part of an agreement of giving the land.
Land. I think that, and then, how do you all feel about sales tax rebates? Like giving back the
Sales tax rebates.
For,
You haven't mentioned much about sales tax. Where's the sales tax coming
So,
from? You haven't talked
sometimes-
about commercial.
sometimes,
So there's a restaurant tax.
Yeah, okay, well, that's not much.
if they have commercial, then you can usually say that, for 5 years, we'll
We've
give
done
you
it.
back your sales tax.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, hotel motel tax would be something else.
Yeah.
I mean,
So everything that they would be creating that wouldn't hit your general fund, because if they didn't build, you anyways wouldn't have that money, so they can have it for a certain period of time.
me personally, I'm in favor of those. If it's the right development and the right way to get the development done and get it to where the neighbors are happy, I mean, that's what's going to have to happen, in my opinion, so.
Alderman Miller?
So, two of the conversations that we constantly have, of course, is parking. So we have discussed at council level before, how do we get additional public parking as we talk to developers and create it? So particularly for the wastewater treatment plant, if it's a multi-use building and it does connect to the Riverwalk, that's going to be, in my eyes, an important key factor. How much parking are you providing for the public? Because right now, there's a small lot at Miller Point. There will be a larger lot at Venice. There's a small amount of parking on the street on Waukegan, but if we extend the Riverwalk, how do people get there? How do they start and how they finish? So parking is the first thing. And of course, I always like to think out of the box. We have a want or desire for a $55 million aquatic center. And how do we trade horses for that? Our community doesn't have any extra money for that. We've been kind of hedging on the referendum word, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of support for a $55 million referendum. But do we get developer bank to start a fund for a future aquatic center? And what does that look like? So kind of a reverse incentive, where instead of us giving them money, I would like to see them being a partner with our community to not just come in, develop, and go. But again, talk about reverse incentives. What can you do for us? And in that, maybe we streamline the process, or maybe we give you an additional floor, or we give you higher density. I think I always have to think about the big picture and what do we want to look like when we grow up? And we can't start talking about adding all this new stuff when we know we have deficiencies in our community. So how do we get it all? What's my wish list?
So, tell us your wish list. You have to match what you're asking the developer to what he's proposing to build. So, if they're building a downtown development, you can't ask them to give you money for a aquatic center. But if they're building homes or a subdivision, instead of your park dedication ordinance can say, for the next 10 years, you have enough parkland. Now you put money in the fund for us to do different things, recreation and all of that. So if they're building homes that are enough homes, then you can ask for that as a part of your park dedication. So we can put it in the UDO.
So if they build a beautiful building down there and they have a beautiful aquatic center, can we make them let the city use it?
Yeah. I mean, you can ask. There's nothing stopping you from asking them for anything. Most times, I have never seen a developer not agree to partner and say, okay, if they do have an aquatic center, the city going in and saying, we want to be a partner and will you open it up to our residents? I've not heard anyone say no, because they do want people to come to their development. So, even if your residents are using the aquatic center, maybe they'll eat there, maybe they'll buy something there, maybe they'll remember the hotel so cute that next time guests come, they will have them stay there. So if they're reasonable, they're probably going to not have a problem with that. So we could always ask if they're proposing an aquatic center.
Yeah. Well, two of the proposals that have not been successful down there at the water treatment plant have both included pools, which, are better pools than we have at our Merkel Aquatic Center. So if we can partner, I think, to me, that's on my wish list.
Okay, yeah, we can add that. We could always put in the RFQ, nice to have, what will give you more points. So when you're grading all the proposals you get, then you can say, here is our wish list, anything out of this will get you 2 extra points.
I like it.
Alderman Benny?
Out of all due respect, Alderperson Miller, I would not want to see any additional parking happening down there. It obviously needs to be sustainable for any residents and any, restaurants or hotels, but anywhere else in town, I love some of the ideas we've talked about before about asking developers to raise the allotted parking to help us solve the problem we have in downtown. But in my vision, I would hope that people would be parking in other places and this would all be walkable. So it's very community friendly, but I would not want to see any more traffic than necessary driving down Waukegan for downtown parking and making it on that location. Just my thoughts.
All right. Any other incentives, feedback on incentives, against the incentives that are up there? None? Okay. Alderman Miller, go ahead.
So I just received a text from a party that says, make them pay for the Riverwalk around the site and a public pavilion in lieu of the TIF. So make John Smith's life easier and have him not have to raise any more money for the Riverwalk, and work with the developer to include some of that in the development. I mean, if we're talking about a Riverwalk, and that's a pretty expansive around the whole thing and looping back, so I don't know what the linear footage is of that. John, did you look at it?
So you can ask them to build it?
Yes.
The Riverwalk? However, it would have to be their proportion. So later on, when the TIF has money, you refund the part of the Riverwalk that they've built extra, that their development, it's not like proportional to their development.
Just responding to a text.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to have $8 million just to donate to we'll never get development on this site.
Well, that's a public improvement, so it would be a TIF
It would be a
eligible,
TIF, right.
expense, which they would get paid for back with their TIF ask. But they would build it in the agreement that we would have with them. And I think that's something that we've always looked at for this site that we would want to happen.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe we need gold blocks on the boardwalk, on the Riverwalk. We can ask for anything from the developer that we want, but let's look at realities too. To say we want everything, but we've got to realize that developers, like you said earlier, Mayor, that
got to pencil out.
They got to make money, and then they're going to be looking at, they're not even going to talk to us if it sounds like we want everything and anything. I think to some extent these are things that maybe should be brought out as far as different things that we'd like to see, but make sure that we stress that everything is negotiable.
Right.
So that they don't feel that if they come to McHenry, they're going to have to do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So I think that's what we got to stress, though, is the fact that we're willing to work with them.
Love that. Any other comments regarding incentives? Does everyone agree the incentives would be the same for the Green Street parcel as well? Does anyone disagree with that? Alderman Miller?
So the Green and Elm parcel, because of topography, coming down the hill to Green Street, I think it would be very difficult to elevate Green Street because it exists, but that topography would lend itself to a taller building in my mind.
The topography would lend itself to a taller building if it was set in the hill. So I think 3 stories may be too restrictive, and I always call it the hollow, because that's the lowest part of Green Street, that hole. So I know a past developer had proposed 4 stories and possibly 5 stories with parking, and that would not have been above, because of the topography, Landmark School, and equal to River Place. So I think 3 stories on the Green Elm project is too limiting.
So are we done with the wastewater, real quick? Are we done with wastewater treatment plant before we keep moving? All right, go ahead. I just want to make sure we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just think, in my eyes, because that's a sliding slope, and we're never going to make it level, because Green Street's down here, Elm Street's up here, that 3 stories, if you put 3 stories on the bottom, it's going to be, like Green Street, but if you set it back in that hill, 3 stories doesn't get you to Elm Street. So you might need to be 4 or 5 stories closer up to Elm, but I'm not an engineer. I'd refer to Mr. Smith. I'm sucking you in, John. Yeah.
I did not text you.
You did not.
Alderman Glab, go ahead.
I think River Place is a good place to start as far as height, but not just as far as the height of the buildings. It's not as obtrusive because of the fact that the upper floor is set back a little bit more, so therefore you're not looking at one big flat, building straight up, and I think that makes a difference in the looks. And if the topography, moves upward, downward, whichever way down Green Street, I just don't see it changing that much to where a full story would make, would level it out. I think to some extent it shouldn't be all squared across anyway. If it flows a little, that's fine. We don't want brick and mortar to look, how would you say, too just basic. We want creativity, and I think to some extent, what I'd hate to see is I think of the bank out on 31, and there it is sitting by itself, sticking way up in the air, and it looks so obtrusive. I don't know what it would look like with buildings next to it, but, I don't want to see an albatross downtown either, so.
What about density? How many units down there on that parcel? I mean, that's probably something.
What, condos? I will not, I will not support apartments. Condos is what I want to see.
But in general, how many units do you think? Just a number, just to kind of have some ideas, I think is important, right? Am I right, Shai? A number of units in that area is important, kind of.
It is, because that's how people will know whether they can meet their numbers.
We know we have a issue about parking right now, okay? Most of the week we're fine. When you have, let's say, the Vixen having their big events, or, certain times of the year, it could really get tight. If we're going to have development up there, there has to be some kind of relief. If we're going to give up some of that property that has parking, they're going to have to develop some kind of parking with it. Possibly, a frontage of storefronts with condos above it, and possibly behind it some kind of parking facilities or something cheered or whatever. Something creative, you know. Let's be creative on some of the ideas that somebody might have as far as development.
I think some of that goes back to the Green Street, where we were talking about that traffic impact analysis, knowing that you're looking at doing a downtown parking plan. That could be, you know, when it's prepared or finalized, that could be information that's provided so that they understand, because obviously, you know, no one wants to build a development that doesn't succeed. But along the same lines, if there's a need for additional parking, back to the incentives, you know, is that something that, you know, well, hey, we need more parking downtown. In order, if you're going to provide that, that's great, that helps us out, and so in exchange for that, we would allow.
Yep. That's part of negotiations at that point.
You know, if you back up a picture or a page that you had, if you could.
Back up.
All right, you're okay.
Back up.
Oh, no, maybe it was forward then. You had pictures of the buildings.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the next picture. There, no, next one.
Yeah.
We're almost there. Keep going.
Oh, not the Elm Green?
Anyway, the point I'm getting at is you had a picture in there, and on the right-hand side, it kind of showed the old storefronts, and then above it, development, and maybe that's the one I want all the way on the right. You know, a look like that would be ideal for McHenry downtown. It really would. Now, whether or not that's feasible, that's a whole different story. But, you know, we've got some old flavor type styles that are out there that we'd like. I think I'd like to see stay there. Not every building is exactly the same. You know, so, and there is some history with that. And, but I would like to see some development above it, you know, within reason. I mean, I think of the old courthouse and all that had to go through there to save a couple timbers. And what, there was probably a 30% cost more by the developer to build that, and besides how much more of a delay. All I'm getting at is we want the look, we want the feel, but we also are trying to be practical for the developer as well, you know. But that would be a nice look, I think, all through the downtown area. It doesn't all have to be the square modern like in the middle. That's my view.
Alderman Doherty?
I want to pick up on a little bit what Alderman Miller said a minute ago. I think the parcel itself lends itself to kind of two different areas. I love what Alderman Glab is saying about kind of the envision of going down Green Street. This is the picture where he was talking about, yes, that's my vision of going down. We're continuing the feel of what's there already, blending in with River Place, but there's the continuity there. That being said, on the other part of that parcel on Elm Street, you definitely have some advantage of that land. You could dig in that land and get two levels parking garage. You're not even at street level probably. Now you've got your 2 stories or 3-story buildings along Elm Street that, you know, you could have a totally different development and look over there without impacting the downtown, which is what we're trying to preserve. That whole corridor could be, you know, a different look there. You've got the fireplace, you've got commercial stuff across the street. You know, you could have that whole thing with some parking and still leave the whole riverside untouched with parking, some plants there. You know, I think we've got a great opportunity here. But I think we could look at them as 2 different areas almost of how we can address the style in the building.
What about height?
You know, height, obviously here I like this, the 3 stories. I mean, here, and it's almost the same on the other side. You're 3 stories at street level, but you're utilizing the below for parking. 1-story parking garage or something there. You can have a huge parking deck down there, but still have your 3 stories above and be a good look from the street.
Okay. Alderman Miller?
So I recently traveled to a couple major cities, Washington, D.C. and Boston, and the trend that I'm seeing in their downtown areas, not that their downtown looks like McHenry by any means, but, and I'll use Old Boston for just the example, they're taking those buildings that look like that, and they're making the first 2 stories retail, and obviously residential above it. So the For example, the one building that I walked into, the grocery store was on the street level, Walgreens was on the second level. And of course, being who I am, I said, why would you put a Walgreens on the second floor? And they said, most people carry one bag out of Walgreens. It's either their prescription or their convenience item. They're not going to go grocery shopping at the Walgreens. So they were strategically using 2 floors. And when I think about the success we had at the mini shops, and we had 8 shopkeepers that couldn't find a 1,500 to 2,000 square foot space that was making Director Martin crazy, if we would offer a second level of retail, which is trending, of smaller retail spaces, a developer might be interested in that if we could give them someone who doesn't need street side retail space. Just an observation from a recent trip that I found interesting in how they've redeveloped to maximize performance of those buildings. Because retail, commercial space is going to maximize the return on their investment versus residential. Just a thought.
Alderman Davis, any input on that site?
I think you can go, I do agree that obviously we would want to really try to incentivize having additional parking as part of those developments in the mixed use. Height-wise, I do think you could go a little higher on those, just because I do like the idea of having areas where maybe right on green, you know, you keep that kind of hometown feel. I personally have, you know, there's plenty of towns that kind of blend that old feel with modern, and I kind of like that, right? I don't think all keeping it old is one. You know, let's if we're going to do some development, let's try to bring some new and preserve the old and see what we can do with that. So I'm open to different ideas. So I like the idea that was brought up earlier is we'll work with them, right? Bring in some ideas and let's see what we can do with it, because I'm certainly not the expert when it comes to architecture, so and what's going to work with different types of architecture. So I'd like to see kind of that blend.
Alderman Bassi?
On Green Street, most of the buildings are 2-story. First story would be a storefront, and on top would be a condo. And I think that would really make it very pleasing to the eye. There's continuity. So on the Green Street portion, I would like to see something like that. Ideally on the Elm Street, I'd also like to keep it 2 stories. Depending on what their plan is, and pushed enough, I might possibly at some point think about going to 3 stories. Was that vague enough? And parking in the middle, I don't want to see any kind of a parking garage on Green Street. I think they're an eyesore. So, and I would like the buildings to be on Green Street comparable to the size of the buildings that are there now. So you're not going to have one great big huge building that's going to take up all of Green Street. Individual ones.
Alderman Cook? Hit your button.
Yeah.
Nope.
I kind of like the mix with the old, with the new, modern. I don't want it to look like Galena, you know, where it's all just the old stuff, okay? I mean, we have the history of having new, innovative, you know, updated, but we still keep the old. And Alderman Davis here, I kind of like his idea too, because mixing, I'm looking at the right one and then the center one, kind of blend them. I could go with that. I could go 3-story. Elm Street, I go 2. You know, but then again, it's parking. So if they can incorporate some kind of parking, whether it's underground or move some of their on the first floor where they can pull right in and stuff like that, I'm open up for suggestions, you know. But I kind of like the looks of it, and I can see it going that way.
No one, Bobby? Manny? Sorry.
I agree with Andy, would like to see something more modern. I would be okay with 4 stories, maybe even higher, but I'd like it to be somewhat comparable to what we've got currently that would be across the street. And I am in favor of apartments. We need them. We need them in the community. We have been told over and over again that developers are having a really hard time doing condos versus apartments, and I would be fine with apartments, and I think that it's something that we need in the area. Well, we do need it. We have studies that say we do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, wanted to comment on, Alderwoman Miller brought up as far as a Walgreens on top of another commercial grocery store. I just could not see something like that, being in favor of something like that. I don't think you'd see any of the bigger names coming in and wanting to be on a second floor. However, it did hit a bell as part of the fact that instead of apartments over, let's say, a storefront or whatever, what about a restaurant up there with some nice open windows and a view, let's say at certain locations to where they have a good view? Might come out as a fairly decent project that way, you know?
So one of
just
the
a thought.
things, sorry.
Go ahead, no.
I was going to say, one of the things you would do is not tell them you have to have this on this floor, that.
Right.
You just say, here are the uses we'd like.
Mixed use.
Now you tell us what, they can decide what goes on the second floor, what goes on the first. Market's going to lead that, right? So.
But we could tell them what we want them to build.
Yes,
right?
so we can tell them, these are the uses.
I'm sure they're not going
we
to build a restaurant and then try to sell it as retail space, you know. So I think it's an idea that I think some developers might grab, you know. Again, we're looking at visions of what we're looking at, and that's, everything's negotiable. That's the main thing we've got to look at.
I think it's important just to be open on the mixed use, you know what I mean? And I think what you're trying to say is a developer comes in, we're not going to say, hey, we want a restaurant on the second floor. We just want to keep it open to what they propose to us.
In this area, we want restaurant, we want retail, we want smaller retail, we want this look, and then they can decide what they want to put in.
Yeah, I mean, they'll look at what, if it's mixed use and there's residential there, and based on the market, what kind of people would then move in there, and then the density in and around that's foot traffic, that they can then say, okay, there's enough for this type or that type, or, there isn't enough density for that, but we'll do this instead.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah, just to add a little bit more, the idea of like a rooftop restaurant or something like that, or, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that would be kind of cool, right? So, again, if just being open to any type of how that mixed use is utilized, I think, that could lend us to different types of ideas and still have that, that feel and that flow, but, you might have a rooftop restaurant, or you might have, whatever to go in there. So I think that's a good idea.
Any other comments, questions? Do you have the density thing figured out? Like, do we have to give you more information regarding density? Because I think that's always the discussion. I think that's always the residents' concern. They saw 900 apartments, regarding Chodine. So I think it's important to have a discussion on what the density looks like. And maybe it's not max of this, but let's be realistic too. two-story buildings all in our downtown area, I just don't think they'll pencil out. It's very costly. That's just my opinion. I haven't done a development like that, but just building things that I built, to me, you'd need a little bit more density. So I just want to make sure we get feedback from the council on what that density looks like. Ross, go ahead.
I think a lot of that has to do with how this parking study
I would agree with that.
turns out, and so, we can have density conversations till we're blue in the face, but if this parking study comes back and says you need 700 parking spots and we only have 400, that changes everything, right?
But also, I don't want to leave this
for a time frame, right, but I think we can always revisit it. You guys have got a lot of information tonight, and this is my opinion, but that parking study really is going to dictate a lot of what happens in our downtown.
I agree.
And also, one of the thoughts is, when you are saying what's the smallest unit that you will allow, minimum size living space that you would allow. And then you're saying how many floors you're gonna allow, and then there's land. There's only so much they can put on there. If it's 3-story, 2-story of whatever living space, condo or apartment, but if we say that you can't have smaller than this unit, how many can they build?
Right.
So, and then your parking will hold them back too.
Right.
So that's why we try not to put density, because...
Okay, I just knew you wanted to talk about density, so I just didn't know if we need to give you a is there something that we should be discussing with them?
Well, if they come up with, they can fit 400 units and their traffic impact analysis proves that there won't be a traffic issue, your parking study shows you have parking, would anyone have an issue? That's what, developers want to know is,
right.
You want a certain type of look, you want certain height, and then if they can fit in something properly, with not causing issues in the existing area, would that be acceptable?
Okay.
So what's the smallest size of unit that you all would like or agree to?
Go ahead.
I was going to say that, to some extent, being that it's a downtown area, you're going to have a lot of single business people that are probably going to live in that area. I mean, you're not going to see that many families that want that, so I'd be amenable that I'd even look at efficiency apartments, but then nothing tiny. It's going to have to be almost a one-bedroom square footage type unit.
So right now, Cody, is our multifamily 1,002? It is, isn't it?
I think it's just
1,000 square feet per unit is what it's at right now, but we did give Authentics variance for 800 square feet efficiency apartments, which is,
kind of small, isn't it? 800 square foot.
Listen, there's a waiting.
Okay.
They're full. They're full.
I mean, to just look at numbers and that, try to visualize the size makes a difference.
And the efficiencies, remember, they're just basically one big room. There might be a divider. It doesn't go all the way to the ceiling, but there's a divider between the sleeping area and the kitchen / living room. So, but 800 square feet for one person, I mean...
There you go.
800.
Okay.
So Rich is out, and Rich owns River Place. What is the square footage that people are asking for or looking for in our downtown, in your building specifically?
Well, our building is a little bit of oddball.
Can you come to the mic? I know. I didn't know how you're moving. Look at you. He had hip surgery, but he's moving now. Sorry, Rich. Middle button.
River Place is a little bit different because it was built to be condos, originally luxury, so everything's oversized there. One bedroom and den, it's got 2 bathrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and it's 1,100 square feet. Whereas the largest apartment is a 2-bedroom with a den, which is about 1,600 square feet. Okay. And all the rooms are fairly large. The bathrooms are, everything's a little bit bigger. So you can't really use that building as an example, but what he was talking about with the aesthetics, that seems to be the more norm across the board with the other buildings being built. They're a little bit smaller, and they try to go more with more amenities than fancy stuff like the fancy cabinets and that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right, perfect, that helps.
Okay.
That's good, thank you, appreciate it. Go ahead, Alderwoman Miller.
So, as I profess to be a professional in my industry, the trend is moving downward in square footage, that people don't want to pay for what they don't use, and we are becoming more cognizant of the stuff that we have. So 20 years ago, you wouldn't even be talking about building something less than 1,200 square feet, and today the trend is moving in the other direction of 700 to 800 square feet. Compared to Europe, the average person lives in 170 square footage.
My wife and I would kill each other.
Which is like the size of our bedrooms in America. So they live in hotel-size apartments, hotel room-size apartments, where we are goldfish and we grow to the size that we have. But if I could just reflect on the trend line, it is moving away from that. People don't want to pay for that, and they're moving down to the 700 to 800 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a great room, which is the kitchen, dinette, living space with a view, a balcony, and outside attachment. So I think if that's the trend and we're thinking future, I would want to be in the trend, not the past, because I think that's what's going to be most appropriate and most attractive to people who are going to be there. That's my thought.
Any other comments? Alderman Bainey?
No, I agree. I think that tiny living is something that I'm hearing about all the time, and I would be okay with option, a mixed sizes, but down to maybe 800, 800.
Alderman Doherty?
No.
Oh.
I said I'd have to rent 3 of them.
Right, exactly. Oh, geez.
We're not renting, we're buying.
You actually, I was gonna say something, you did say rental the last time you spoke. I'm gonna.
My mouth.
You actually did.
Yeah, see?
I said slap my mouth, because I'm not crazy about rentals. You know I won't vote for that.
Andy, my hair changed colors.
All right, any other input regarding size? 800 square feet, 750? 800? I think 800 for me. I think 800 minimum for me.
Min or max?
Minimum.
Because that's what we had, and then athletics shoot us down to 800. So if we don't start at 1,000, I mean, you start at 800 and they're going to shoot you down to 7.
Yeah.
So.
And I will add to my comment that in larger communities like New York, Chicago, which we're not, but people will buy 2 and put them together if they need 1,600 square feet. That's not unheard of. When you're buying directly from a developer and you say, oh, I can't possibly live in 800 square feet, that human that's selling those will gladly say, buy 2 and we'll take out a wall. And now you can have twice as much space.
And they can buy them. Thank you.
There we go.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Rich? Sorry, you got to come back up, though. Yeah.
Like physical therapy.
Yeah, right. Physical therapy.
Don't forget about studio apartments, too. That's something you should look at, too. Those would be under 800 square feet. And a lot of singles would be looking at something like that.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. Okay. All right. John, go ahead.
Is there public comment now, or?
Yeah, might as well, John. Go ahead. You know that.
Rich, are you full in your development?
Always.
Yeah, so in my opinion, you have our two premier pieces of property in McHenry. We're talking the wastewater treatment plant property, and you're talking that Green Elm Street property. And to me, you want that to be very high quality and very desirable. And I'm just going to simply say that I have a problem, personally, this is your decision, with efficiency and things of that nature, studios. To me, you make it much higher quality, and I think you still fill them up. It's, pardon?
I agree with you.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know if you said I was wrong. I could very easily be, and I could very easily be, but to me, those are our two, our two best properties.
I don't disagree. Thank you, John.
If I could if I could respond to that, I would agree that it should be quality, but a good mixture of the unit size, I think, is important because, you know, you're younger, fresh out of college, you know, you want that generational mix in your downtown, and maybe they can only afford those. Make those studios, you know, granite tops and nice cabinets and stuff, but I still think you need that good mix of studios and
apartments all around town.
right.
Well, at least there's a start, and you can kind of go off of that. Any more input? Anything else from us on that?
Do we have enough to write a RFQ for both these properties, I think?
Well, I think we have to wait for the parking study to be done first,
correct.
so we can definitely get started, and if there's
we can
something
get started.
coming back, right. And we've got some information for the UDO, which is good as well.
Yeah.
So we can have a debriefing tomorrow or later this week. Thank you, by the way, everybody. Great discussion tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
I agree. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, we've talked about 700 to 800 square feet. I would actually like to see 1,000 be the average. Some smaller, some larger, but the general average would be 1,000 square feet.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick.
Can you got to come up here. You got to be on camera. Got to hear you. Sorry. Yeah, no. Please state your name and address for public record.
Marion Isley, 3530 Waukegan. You were talking about the water reclamation area, about putting a boutique hotel in. I was thinking the same way he was about the restaurant on the roof. Imagine that down on that point looking over the river.
Yeah.
If you put a restaurant on the first floor, you're going to miss it. But if you put one up on the high, the view would be spectacular.
Agreed. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will come back for the whole UDO stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We will be seeing plenty of HDR over the next few months. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bill Hobson.
You're done. You got 5 minutes, remember?
Do we want a bathroom break now? I'm not gonna.
Oh, you need to pee?
I think what others need, and this is gonna turn.
Does anyone need to use the restroom? All right. Let's take a break here for 5 minutes while Bill gets set up. So 5-minute break, and then we'll get back to the parks plan.
Do we have to redo roll call?
I don't think so. Roll call when we come back.
Stretch that 5 to 8 here.
Alderman Beatty?
Here. Alderman Glab?
Here.
Sorry. Alderman Doherty? Alderwoman Bassey? Here. Alderman Davis?
Yep.
Alderman Cook?
Here.
Alderwoman Miller?
Here.
And we're back. It's Janelle's birthday. Everybody should know it's Janelle's birthday tonight. All right. All right. We were in section 5, was addressing underserved areas and improving connectivity. And we were already through all of these. Yep. It's one of the things that we do need to try to be a little more proactive, or I guess looking forward, is to identify land acquisition opportunities or land swap opportunities. So while we still have some vacant land available to us, to be able to establish some acquisition or right of first refusal on properties that we think are key properties moving forward is something that was suggested in the plan to identify and serve those underserved areas. In addition, this 5.3 is really all about the bike path plan. And so how do we continue to implement that? The most current plan that we have that I could find was one that was done in 2004 that represents some really significant corridors for us to try to preserve and provide activity. For example, along Boone Creek, I'm afraid to press a button. right along Boone Creek, that corridor of a possibility to tie in our western neighborhoods right to the middle of downtown to Whispering Oaks. That's an opportunity to not only preserve that greenway corridor, but then provide connectivity. Similarly, on Curran Road, a possibility of extending a bike path plan that might create that connection across that planning area and get us to Parkland, provide a safe crossing at that street, but brings those kids from those neighborhoods or anybody that's looking to move through our community. Those are a couple areas. And then the Riverside Drive, we talked about that corridor and connecting that path, that loop path for a while. Those are all key ones that it ties back into the bike plan. The last goal was number 6, and that was improve department operations and funding opportunities. So the City of McHenry Parks and Recreation Department operates with limited staff relative to its size. Although this was primarily identified through input directly from staff, survey participants also raised concerns that could be addressed through staffing changes, such as being made aware of McHenry offerings, as well as having difficulty attending and signing up for programs due to the high enrollment. Staff has also been increasing their responsibilities as new properties are added, and their duties at city events and special development zones have increased. For example, Shamrocks the Fox or the management of our downtown districts. Those all fall on the Parks Department's shoulders. These partnerships, industry trends, the partnerships, for example, with nearby schools, these are things that we need to continue to exploit because it helps us to, I guess, not only have space, but then programming sometimes for our limited staff. But other things that did pop up were particularly that the survey participants occasionally noted their lack of awareness from McHenry offerings and programs, which marketing staff assist. I know that we've talked about a position for this for a while, but this was pointed in our online survey. Our primary tool is a program guide, our mailed program guide, but we also try to do our best that we can, especially through social media, our Facebook presence, try to cross-share as things that I know the police department helps us out at times for events, but also with the city and the Parks Department Facebook pages. So you'll see these strategies in 6 that really discuss that and talking about just taking our structure, our department structure, and redefine it, and making sure where are we spending our best time at? How can we? Is there things that we should? Is there areas that we need to grow in and potentially look at adding staff? Not only is there opportunity to use contractual, for example, the mowing was a good example of however we can take some of that mowing off of our shoulders. And we've done a pretty good job of that. There's still some areas that we're taking a look at that we felt that needed a higher level of service that we'll look to transition potentially to some contractual mowing as well. The hiring additional staff really focused, again, we talked about the marketing employee. That would be a big one, for the city as a whole, not just the Parks Department, but even things like adding additional camp counselors to be able to take on when those programs fill up. There was no exaggeration of when those programs fill up, especially for our summer camp. You really have to be in that by April, and those weeks are pretty well full, which is a testament to our camp and what our programming, and I'm proud to be able to share that, but maybe the possibility of adding more camp counselors to be able to add more summer camp programs. Additionally, one of the things we talked about for the Peterson Farm was, is there potential to bring on some specialized staff? If that staff has that knowledge and that interest in what we're doing out there, maybe that lends itself to either programming or having that facility open on limited occasions to be able to highlight some of the features of the farm itself. I talked about I don't need to go through this again. We're just talking about revisiting existing partnerships. And then this was a big one, that identify and pursue any additional funding opportunities that we can identify, whether that's grants, TIFs, bonds, obviously the developer contributions, whether that's land when we do have new homes. I think that one of the big things that we have to be cognizant of as we talk about any new development is if they're putting parks in, who's going to, are those parks coming to us? Are they staying with a developer? For example, the Oaks at Irish Prairie, they do have a nice park that they consulted with us about what to put in there, but the HOA has retained the ownership or the maintenance of that park. They have a basketball court and they have a pavilion, they have a small parking lot, but to date that's still in their possession. And so is that a model that moving forward you see more of when a new neighborhood goes in, do they retain that? And I think that's all part of the negotiations of what comes to us versus what they'll hold on to, especially things, if there's a clubhouse, something along that lines, we don't really want to be, I don't want to say stuck with it, but it becomes a higher maintenance item that is tough for us to be able to stay on top of. This 6.5 was really about updating just the community investment plan. We do an excellent job of that every year. It's tied to the budget, so I don't really need to say much more on that. I think everybody's pretty well familiar with what happens there already. 6.6 is what we just did, whether that's downtown plans or the community plan, being at the table for those type of plans, the community investment plans, making sure that we're all, and I think we do a great job of that as a team, whether that's through our directors, whether that's directors meetings, or just having everybody at the table to make decisions is certainly something. I don't know if it goes everywhere, but it's nice to have it here, and as long as I've been here, we've done an excellent job of that. 6.7 is certainly one, improve senior awareness of offerings, especially by others. I know that we have a limited senior offering, and we do that, I don't want to say intentionally, but it is somewhat intentional because we have a partnership, or not a partnership, but we have a relationship with McHenry Township and their senior services and what they offer. And so we don't want to step on their toes or the library's toes, and we try to even cross promote those programs. We do have some open time for the seniors now in the middle of the day on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so we're trying to build a little something there that we can continue to cultivate and see where that goes. But in the meantime, we will continue to not only offer our trips, which are very popular, but then continue to promote the other programs because it's our community. I won't go into much into this. I'll just give you the very first year of an implementation. I won't even go through, but this is where it really came down to criteria when certain things started to make a difference of when you start basing what are the age of a piece of equipment or how realistic it is to accomplish that. They put together a 5-year plan and really took all of these that I went through, these strategies for each section, they took those and they put them into that 5-year plan and a 5-year action plan. And so this is the very first year, and I just wanted to give an example of all the items that they laid out versus the boxes that I put in red are things that are already in motion or will be in motion, hopefully. Things like the Cold Springs Park. That's a plan that's in motion now based on tonight's meeting. I know there'll be other things that we need to talk about, like the historic Peterson Farm, or if we choose to talk about the Distinguished Citizen Park, Green Street Park. Those are all the type of things, and you can see there's some from every one of them. We don't have action right now in really any of the aquatic facility, any of the feasibility. The only one that we probably look to accomplish this year at this moment would be to take a look at the rec center, the analysis of that, which will still be something that's probably forthcoming to you. But you can see, as I talked about through the plan, there's a few things from every one. So it truly is a concurrent plan. It's not 1 to 6 and we're going to do 1 and then we're going to move on to 2. There's something for each one of those sections. And so, as I said, I don't need to go through every year. These are all in the plan that you can check, but I thought Hitchcock did a great job of laying out a map, somewhat of a suggestion of how to get there from here. And I thought that was did a nice job. This is the only other thing that I would mention. These are things that happen on the recurring items. It's one of the very last things. It's something that happens continually. It's some things that we're always addressing, like looking at the leases, just the awareness of the senior programs, all of those type of things. So that brings me to maybe. This chart was at the very end. It's the same thing as laying out that 5-year plan, just with each category colorized, and it says the same thing as all those, as the action plan. And with that, it might have been a little more than 5 minutes, but it wasn't much more, and I would encourage any questions that you might have or comments, and be happy to answer those, or try. Alderman Bassi?
Bill, thank you for the presentation. Going back to Cold Springs Park, page 92, you had said that we are not going to have a pickleball or a disc golf.
Not pickleball, not disc golf, not either one of them.
And I believe you, but my request is, could you scratch it off, so that if anybody looks at this online, they don't have concerns? Mm-hmm. You can either delete it completely or scratch it off or put an indicator that this is not going to happen.
Okay.
Thank you. And then on page 99, we are talking about pickleball, and you had named a couple of neighborhood parks.
The consultant named. I didn't name it. The consultant named it.
Okay.
All consultant.
I understand, and that's why I'd appreciate if you could remove these so that people don't freak out if they see the disc golf potentially at Cold Springs Park.
So you want all the pickleball removed, is that?
No. Disc golf for Cold Spring Park, and then on page 99, you have a few parks in Ward 4 that you had actually said, don't worry, we're not going to put pickleball there. I would just like those eliminated or scratched out or whatever you want to do, but it would be Shamrock Farm and the Fox Ridge East and West.
I think we should be, in my opinion, careful of what we just start taking out. These are presented as options. At this point, we have no intention of moving forward with those, but to start taking things out as options that a consultant presented to us as these are some things you consider, I don't think that we should limit our options by taking things out of a plan.
I would agree. I think it's important, if that's going to come forward, that the residents get involved and have input on it too, because I think there's a lot of people that are in that neighborhood that plays pickleball, whether it's the sound issue or not. But I think it's important, just like what we did with Cold Springs, and we mentioned it multiple times in public meeting, because they came here, they were upset about it, we changed the plan. That's the same thing that would come forward. I don't think remove things from the plan, but that's my opinion.
Okay, and I understand that, but one thing that I am concerned about is the leadership notes that we got on Friday, that Knox Park has now successfully put their pickleball courts in, but you're hearing, I don't want to say complaints, you're hearing from the residents on Green Street that it is now, they would like some kind of a buffer put around it. So that's why, and that's, what is that, like 500 feet away? And my concern is that the 3 parks in Ward 4 are all surrounded by residential homes. So I'm just putting that out, that I would like to be very careful about having it in Ward 4, 3 established neighborhood parks.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Again, I would say just to tell you again that this is a living document and that before any decisions are actually made, they're going to come before you and nothing will be made out unilaterally or outside of that, the decisions that will come to this board, this council.
Alderman Miller?
But thank you. Just, I guess, for my own education, this is your arena. This is what you're trained in. Pickleball's the thing right now. What's going to be the thing 5 years from now when we're all 80?
What's going to be the thing? I really would say it's still going to be that walking path. That's the thing that really, that's creates mobility. Just get out and walk. And for as long as I've been in this seat, every time that we've done a study, the walking trails and the ability to walk on a nice path is going to be number one. And so to be able to predict what a next trend might be for when I'm 80, I can't speak intelligently to that the next pickleball is going to pop up, but I can tell you that walking trails is very consistently going to stay right where it's at, and has for a long time. Before I've been in the seat, it's the number one thing.
Do we have any bocce courts right now?
We do not. The township has some bocce courts, but it was something that was identified that we were lacking early on in the presentation.
Is there any community around us that has bocce courts?
I don't know.
I mean, do you call them a court, or do you call them a lane, or what do you call them?
I'll call it court. I'll go with you in court.
I mean, I've played elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't even think through my thought process anything around us has a bocce court. Maybe Lake in the Hills in one of their big parks, but...
That's where I like the opportunity. We talked about going back and taking a look at especially some of the bigger parks, like a Peterson Park, and taking a fresh look at that entire park layout. You say, well, remember I referenced that there used to be the horseshoe pits there. Well, that trend kind of died, and we took those horseshoe pits out. But maybe the shuffleboard courts were also at Peterson, but maybe bocce ball courts it's a good spot. It's centrally located, or maybe it's Knox Park. And so taking a fresh look at those, even if it's the bigger parks, we're going to do a refresh. But we're also going to look to maybe add those elements that say we didn't consider this before, and that's the advantage of bringing in a consultant to do that schematic design plan. And maybe it's just a schematic design plan, and we implement those things on our own. It doesn't have to be a full-blown park redo, but to get a fresh look at it or fresh eyes, I don't think is ever a bad thing. Sometimes you're so close to it that it's hard to say this. It should be this or that, because you've looked at it so many times or been in that park so many times that you can't see outside what it is to what it could be.
So in Suzanne's past, they bought a public space and did a very unique thing. So I love your idea of remodeling what we have, because we have a lot of land. Couple conversations that I've had this past week when we were talking about parks and utilization, unprompted, the word mini golf came up 2 or 3 times. That the lack of mini golf courses, they just all vanished. I mean, there's one in Woodstock. They used to be everywhere. They don't take a lot of space, but now they're gone. There's one in Woodstock,
Crystal Lake
and they're gone.
Crystal Lake Park District has one at Lippold.
So mini golf's come up a couple times. It was funny that you had shuffleboard in your thing. I had a conversation about what do you do when you're not home, and they're like, oh, when we go on the cruise, we play shuffleboard every day. I'm like, seriously? All the other things you could do on a cruise ship, and you push heavy objects up a 60-foot runway? But that's just my idea of not fun. But curling, yeah.
Geez.
That's ice. So curling's very popular. We could take the Fox Ridge ice skating that's not used and turn it into a curling thing.
No. No, you are not taking my ice skating rink.
We'll make another one. In your wandering, if you could just keep us informed of the trends Because when we're investing this kind of money and investing this kind of brain power in what we do with this, I want to know what your development, your departments, and your think tank in Parks and Rec are saying 5 years from now is going to be the thing.
Yeah.
Because I believe we're behind on pickleball. And we obviously see that by our utilization. But I don't want behind on the next greatest thing.
Yeah, so polish up your crystal ball.
Your magic
Crystal ball?
eight
I just have the magic 8 ball. I can't afford a crystal ball. The other nice thing
But
about
I would like to
when you
see
look
us
at the
do a mini golf. I
Yeah.
think mini golf would work in a couple of our cool spots. Like Peterson Farm could have a really cool mini golf around the farmhouse.
I don't know if that goes completely with that theme out there, but I do think there might be a spot for that, especially because you'll have to have a spot where you have some location where they can get the rental for the balls and the putter, and so those type of things are all in consideration. Maybe that's an element that goes at Knox. The other nice thing I like about doing some of the schematic designs ahead of time is it also affords us then an opportunity to seek out grants. If there's a plan already in place, whether it's something that's 2 or 3 years down the road for this particular element, now you can search that out a little bit quicker than to say, all right, I'm going to try to find a grant, and now I'm going to tailor my park to fit what that grant is. It works better the other way. If we have some conceptual plan for what Peterson could be, and we know there's a walking trail that we want to put around the outside of that, all right, we have this plan already in place. Now I can go to whoever that person is. And it's the same, I think it's also going to be a part of our discussion at the Peterson Farm of what more could it be, and then searching out an opportunity for some grants to go towards those. We knew one thing that we had success with early on was the silos. We knew the wooden silos were there. Doug Martin was actually, took the lead on that and was instrumental in getting the caps on those silos. I think worked with Jack Franks at that point. To our knowledge, they're the only 2 standing wooden silos in McHenry County. And for us to be able to identify grant money and put caps on those, that preserve a huge portion of that farm and the character of that farm. So my point is just having schematic design sometimes while we're spending money for a plan to sit on a shelf. It's not necessarily that. It gives us an opportunity to think outside the box and then to also seek other opportunities for monies to make those things happen.
Oh, Alderman Bessie, go ahead.
Okay, even though I'm upset with you, Alderwoman Miller, for taking my ice skating rink away from me.
I didn't take it away, I modified it.
Well, I want to keep it, but
I enhanced it. We're just gonna put paint underneath it, so when you're not figure skating.
then I get to ice hockey?
my God.
Okay, no, what I do want to say is, you had said that randomly you heard people want mini golf. I heard the exact same thing, but many, 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 many people were telling me that this is a big interest of theirs. So you may have 1 or 2. I had like 30 people telling me this is a big interest.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even know how to enterprise to make money at it.
There's no money. Honest to God, I've looked into it. It's very tough to make money in a miniature golf place without a restaurant.
Well, yeah, right, you have to have a concession.
I don't have to make.
No, you gotta have more than concession. You gotta have a liquor.
It is.
Go without the liquor.
No, you do. You gotta have liquor and food to make.
I mean, it's one of the nice things as us being the provider is that we don't have to as much worry about. I mean, we do worry about a bottom line. However, it's an offering, and so sometimes that's why you'll see park districts or parks departments take that on, because there's not quite as a big of emphasis. I need to worry about all this. It's more us being able to provide that to our community.
So I love the beer garden idea, that's how kind of steaks.
Me too.
Any other questions, comments? Good job, Bill.
Thank you all. I appreciate the input.
All right. Any other staff reports? No? Oh, Doug, what do you got?
I just want to let the council know there'll be 2 murals installed this week. One at 3413 West Elm, which will be installed Thursday or Friday, depending on the weather. That's the vinyl mural that the high school kids did. And then the other one is currently being installed, but there'll be a community painting day on Saturday from 9 to 3 p.m. So come on out if you can. It'll be at the brewery, 3425 Pearl. Yeah, that's the location.
Thank you. Alderman Glab, some painting for you Saturday morning. All right, thank you, Doug. Any other staff reports? All right. I have nothing this evening. City council comments? Alderman Bassel.
Chief, this is actually for you. I received an email yesterday from a resident concerned about the illegal fireworks in their neighborhood. The question is, what can they do? What are the police going to do? What are the ordinances? And how am I going to respond to that?
I'll be more than happy to forward council our annual friendly reminder email about the fireworks ordinance and what people should do. But calling the non-emergency number, we'll send a police officer over. If we find a violation, we confiscate illegal fireworks and we write local ordinance citations for them.
Well, a lot of times they're finished.
A lot of times they are. It's a very difficult.
So then you start looking for all the little.
It's very difficult to police.
Light them
and all the residents know them all every year. They know this.
Where do you think we get our fireworks for yesterday?
Well, this goes on every weekend. All right, if you could forward that to me, then I will.
Yep. Then you'll have that information for whatever constituents call you on. You'll have it so you can give them the right information.
And I can forward that on to anyone?
My email to you? Sure.
Well, no, sure, thanks. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
No, the body of it I can forward.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any other city council comments? Yes, maybe?
No, I'll wait, I'll hold off.
Oh, okay. What do you, go ahead.
Sorry, last minute staff report. I just wanted to remind everyone, we will not be holding a first meeting in July. So our next meeting, I believe, is July 21st. Anyone? Second meeting in July. Back on the normal schedule. Thanks.
So then, can I do it, I do want to add up, put a.
2 minutes.
There in everybody's mind.
Several residents contacted me, and I've subsequently had conversations with Director Hobson about creating some kind of an open-air McHenry market. And we're putting a business plan together, so I just want to let council know that I might be going through the channels of promoting and supporting the creation of an open-air McHenry market. So I'll just let you all think about that. And if you have any questions, call me and I'll tell you where we're at this point. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
As in flea?
As in flea? No.
I've been told I cannot use the word flea. So
But that type of concept?
that type of concept, which is why we're going to call it an open-air market. What I was directed by city, Mr. Hobson, is we could support it, but we're not going to run it. So he has asked me to find champions that would commit to organizing, running, administering, and the city would support, meaning change the garbage cans, maybe move a picnic table or two, but they are not going to staff or service. So I have identified champions, and we are putting together a business plan.
And once she has that plan, then it would come before council.
I was just going to say, yes, that would be something that would come before you to
Correct.
ultimately
I just want to
decide.
clarify that, right?
But I still like the word flea.
And there is a flea market ordinance that we would have to address. So.
Right.
Yeah, I would just say
It's not called flea, it's open air. Open air market.
Again, I would say read that ordinance and understand the definition of a flea market, because it doesn't matter what you name it, if it fits the criteria. So make sure that you're proposing something that's not in violation of the ordinance.
Actually, can you send that to council, that ordinance? Alderman Glab, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Alderman Glab with a motion to adjourn. Second, Alderman Bainey.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bainey?
Yes.
Alderman Doherty?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.